and they had their own little spin on it. They understood because they taught them how to do the shit. So they lived together peacefully. Everything was cool. So you can't have the Greek government basically say we're going to turn on these people, because the people wouldn't be for it. The people was cool with the Egyptians, probably likely intermarried in some cases with some of the people. Everything was fine. So what do? You give the Persians the key to the back door and say, go in there and take that shit, knowing that you can beat the Persians later on, knowing the weakness, knowing if they get into certain points, you know how to get in there. But if the Persians take over, then you can say, oh, well, we're going in there and basically helping out our brothers, the Egyptians. Remember, they only came to help the Egyptians one time. And I forget that story on one part of the land, but they was defeated. Some of the Greeks came to help the Egyptians out in some part of, I believe it was near Ionia somewhere, but they was defeated and they fled. But the Greeks didn't come in full force to the aid of the Egyptians. Nobody did, because people wanted to see them fail. You know, it's like being cool with somebody with somebody who owned a mansion on the block, the biggest, best house on the block. They're still looking out for y'all, but it's so much more in their house. And eventually people get together and say, you know, I can't wait till their house falls, because as soon as it falls, I'm going to run in there and get what I can get. People not being grateful, people who have a material mindset, not thinking about, you know, the spiritual aspect of what the Egyptians was trying to do for them. But you had the Greeks basically fall to the Romans eventually. But before all that, you had the Greeks basically, you know, enslaved these black people. They created Judaism and they pushed it on the people and got them to basically indoctrinate their own people with Judaism. And they eventually spread it over. After time, you know, went by and they got people on board, they spread the religion. Because again, you know, the whole thing with LXX, the letters of Orestes, goes against the actual history of the Greeks. There's no way that Ptolemy II Philadelphus actually, you know, paid the Jews all this money to come and do this translation and freed a bunch of the Jewish slaves. It don't fit. It don't make sense. Why? Because of Hellenization. We understand that Hellenization was going on for a long time. That Hellenization was them afflicting the Cerebus, which I showed you in the video when I went to the Cairo Museum. Cerebus, the actual statue. Them, you know, forcing Cerebus and forcing these Greek gods on the people. This is what it was. They was forcing the Greek ideology or what have you, trying to force it on the people. So one of the things we have to understand, one, is if the Jews was just this separate people, separate, you know, away from the Greeks, why would the Greeks be trying to push Hellenization on them, knowing that once you set these people free, they got their own religion or what have you, and you trying to push Hellenization? Because they did push it in Israel, but again, the people weren't going for that shit. They wasn't going for no Hellenization. They knew what it was. So they came up with Judaism. They came up with it. They trying to make it like, oh, well, this happened between us and the Jews, so they can establish a faulty timeline by saying that Judaism was already established before this. Bullshit. It didn't happen until after that. So when y'all was trying to push, which is recorded, when they was trying to push Hellenization in that area, there was no Judaism yet. Y'all was still developing it, working on it. And then since the people didn't fall for the shit and fall for Serapis and fall for all their bullshit, they came out with Judaism, pushed it. You know, you have generational knowledge is what happened. So that generation passed. And remember, these people don't care about time. So they can be working towards one agenda and die trying to fulfill that agenda. But once the time passed and the kids now got indoctrinated into it, and they just grew up with Judaism and grew up with it, and it stuck. Because all the people who knew the truth was dead and gone. And then you had people with no knowledge, wasn't passed down, and they got born into this whole Judaism, and it just spread. And this is how they basically spread Judaism. So you have Ezekiel giving us this story, coupling, you know, Satan with this man, with the so-called king of Tyre or what have you. So again, you look at this story again, and as I started out with, and you would ask yourself, well, why isn't the story about Satan in the beginning of the book? Why is it not in Genesis? That gets you thinking about Genesis. So you go to Genesis, And you think about one, the story is talking about a person pretending to be a god or acting like a god. Remember, it's not 100% definitively clear on what's going on here. Is the dude possessed by Satan? It's one of the most debated books in the Bible. Again, we're going to get into that, all this stuff and more when we get into the whole series on the Bible, which is going to be coming up soon. But it's debated because you got to really think about it. One, okay, well, give me the story. Give me the story. What's going on? What happened? Because if this was actual history and stuff that happened, you can give us a biblical account of what really happened up in heaven. Why did Satan rebel? What was going on? We know it talks about what it talks about, but go into detail the way you do with the building of Noah's Ark, as far as what the hell happened up there. What happened? But it doesn't really give us that. Instead, we get this. We get what's in Ezekiel. We get what's in Isaiah. We get distorted stuff in Revelations. It's not definitively clear, and they coupling Satan with a man and kind of confusing you as to what's going on here. So when you go back to Genesis, and it's talking about, Adam and Eve and the serpent story, what have you, and you have to look at it and say, well, damn, it's almost the same as in Ezekiel. Because understand, whatever created us, whatever it was, it's not God. That's what we would think of God. Whatever created us is not the same being that created the universe, all the other planets, the stars, or what have you. Plain and simple, it is not. So when you read in Genesis 1:26, when it says, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, what is it talking about? Again, this goes back to consciousness. It goes back to consciousness. It goes back to consciousness and existence itself. So making man in our likeness, there is no visible image of consciousness. There is no visible image of existence except for existence, something that exists. So the fact that we exist and have a consciousness, we would be in the likeness of the Creator, which would be consciousness, existence. So basically, as I said before, you had consciousness and existence create a physical form, which would be not just us, everything that we see out in the universe. So let us make man in our image, after our likeness. The image and likeness of the Creator would be what? What we are. We are that. We are the result of consciousness creating energy, creating the elements, creating matter. That's what we are. So when you go to the creation of Adam, talking about the atoms, those are the elements. Creating man from the dust of the ground. The earth, stardust. That's all it is. That's what we are. We are stardust. We are made up of stardust. It's just that simple. Everything started with stardust. Big chunks, from dust to clumps to big boulders to what have you. You go from planets, you go from grass and everything and what have you to us. These are all elements and energy and all this stuff coming from one conscious source. It's not no being that created this body. Again, this body was created. And then when you go back to the story in Genesis, it's telling you that. Remember, let's form man. Make man. I'm going to mold this man. Like Canaan, molding man on a potter's wheel. God didn't create this spirit, this energy, this soul. Didn't create that. So when Satan goes to the garden and he says to Eve, hey, bullshit, you ain't going to die if you eat off this tree. He know you ain't going to die. Because he understood that they were gods lacking knowledge. You a god. You just like this dude. You just don't have the knowledge. You don't have the understanding of knowing what you are. Know thyself. Going back to the Egyptian parable. You just don't know who you is. Why does Satan know? Because he went through the same shit. When you get into the whole parable of the story, God created him. Why don't you just kill Satan off him? Get rid of him. You can't, because he's just like you. He is you. So understand what it's trying to say here is the Creator whoever it is just like us. Made from what? Stardust. It's not the real, supreme consciousness of the universe. It's just whatever these beings are that created us. They are made from the same thing as we are. They have more knowledge than we do. They have a different composition than we do. They have more knowledge. They can do more things. They are, well more experienced in this universe than us. But they are not the creator of the entire universe. So when you're tracing all this back to the powers that be, when you're tracing all this back to Ezekiel, when you're tracing this back to, what we talked about as far as these people proclaiming themselves to be God, it's basically telling you exactly the same thing. That these people are proclaiming to be God, claiming to have all this power. They may know more than you do, but in essence, for real, they just like you. They are not all powerful beings. They are not the gods, the creators. It may seem that way because they trick you to believe they are. So now remember, we talked about the purple dye. We talked about the purple dye of the Morax, and the purple dye that basically gives Phoenician its names. It's named from the Greeks who called it Phoenician, from the Greek word phonicus, and that purple dye. Now, purple dye, again, everything that we've been seeing so far, you can go in the Bible and you can find purple dye as well. So when you look at Ezekiel 27:7 says, "Fine linen with broidered work from Egypt was that which thou spreadest forth to be thy sail. Blue and purple from the isles of Elisha was that which covered thee." So this is Elisha. Elisha is basically in ancient Ionia. Now Elisha is a man. Elisha is the son of Jovan. Jovan goes back to Japheth. Japheth, remember, goes back to Greek mythology to Iapetus, who was a Titan. Remember, Iapetus is one of the moons of Saturn. It's the moon that looks like the Death Star. So you have all of this Greek mythology, everything pointing you into the direction of the Greeks, one, but also in the direction of Satan. Saturn, Satan. They're giving you everything right here, all in Ezekiel. Ezekiel is really important to understand when you start going through the verses and seeing what all this stuff pertains to. We only scrape the surface. We only going to be able to scrape the surface in this video. It's so much more, but we will eventually get into all of it as we go along. But it's giving you so much. So we understand, one, what is the purple dye about? We understand this goes back to the colors of royalty. The purple and scarlet. We know about that. So the purple goes back to royalty. There was never a king of Tyre. The Egyptians didn't do that whole king thing. The only person who would even be crowned king in Tyre would be Alexander. He's the only one that will be crowned king. So they're giving you the clues here. What did they do? We're talking about, one, this is the birthplace of Europe. The Europeans are the one who started this whole king shit. Kings. They talk about kings, one, everybody was kings, this and that. And the thing is, the timeline is out of whack. Because you would think all these territories that existed during the time of Kemet, around the time a lot of these people was king, they had no concept of it. It was just about conquest. The whole king things was them understanding how a governmental structure was set up. We had that in Africa, not just in Kemet. So they got it from us. But this is how they began their kingship, the European powers. Purple was their color. We understand about purple and scarlet. In the Bible, we know the Vatican. That's their colors. They wear purple and scarlet. So they're trying to basically mark, as I said before, the beginning of their reign. So you had the siege of Tyre and the siege of Israel, which is one of the reasons why Israel is the Holy Land, because you have the religions come together there, which are the religions that's leading everything right now. But you got to understand, look it up. 332 BC, they actually conquered Israel and Tyre at the same time. These are the holy lands to them. This is the places they still rule to this day, that they cloak. It's all still ruled by Rome. Rome never lost power. Whatever they tell you is bullshit. They are still in power and have been still in power. Again, the papacy. They pointing you right into their direction. Again, we know purple and scarlet. We know Revelation is talking about the woman dressed in purple and scarlet. When she had jewels and everything of her body, just comparing her to the same thing they said to Satan. This is why the Geneva Bible called the Pope the Antichrist. Adorned in jewels and, pearls and everything, just like they describe Satan. They describe the whore of Babylon, or the so-called, Scarlet Witch and everything you want to call her. Same shit. Pointing you right in that direction, giving you everything right in Ezekiel. You just got to look. When you start reading, there's no way you can get around it. Everything we've been talking about is going back to Europe. It's pertaining to the powers that be, pertaining to the European powers, and they rise. They laid siege to Israel. They laid siege to Tyre. They had to get into these lands first in order to, really begin their conquest. And this was what really started it for them. And it's pointing you right in this direction and giving you everything. So now remember, Nebuchadnezzar, in the book of Daniel chapter 2, remember, it's giving you his dream. Remember, Daniel was supposed to interpret his dream. He had these dreams and he tried to get the magicians and everybody to come and interpret it. They couldn't do it, so he was like killing them off or what have you. And then, he was like, Daniel, you're supposed to have favor with God or what have you. You come in and interpret these dreams for me. And he came and he basically, told him about the dreams. Remember the dreams. Think about it. Somebody's head just exploded right now. What were the dreams about? The 4 nations. The 4 nations. Remember, gold, and iron, the brass and iron or what have you, dirt. What were those 4 nations? Here they go. Here they go. Now, Babylon, we can skip Babylon. Babylon, what should be there, should be Egypt. But this is how they try to hide and distort it, putting Babylon there. But you have Babylon, which should be Egypt. You have Persia. You have the Greeks. You have the Romans. You have the Romans again. What is we talking about here? Remember, we go back to Ezekiel 26:7, I believe it was, when he basically said, I'm going to send Nebuchadnezzar to lay siege to where? Tyre. Didn't he send Nebuchadnezzar? Look at what Nebuchadnezzar is. You understand what I'm saying? You get it now. So when you look at the bust, notice how it's in the shape of a man, but that man is supposed to be Nebuchadnezzar. And you have the colors, the stones, whatever, the gold or what have you. But you have this man representing the nations that actually went in there and basically laid siege to Tyre. So when he said in Ezekiel that I'm going to send Nebuchadnezzar, he really did send Nebuchadnezzar. This is the hint it's giving. Again, it's one of those daggers, to the Bible. When not only do they hide, see how they hit it really well? They hit it really good. Not only do they give you the story, but you have to look deeper. And this is what we're going to go through as we go, into the Bible more and more. So when you look deeper, the answer is right there. They give it to you. This is why I say to people, it's in codes. It's hidden. It's in riddles. You got to know where to look. If you read the book and you know history, you're going to be able to figure the stuff out. There it is right there for you people. He said, I'm going to send Nebuchadnezzar. All right. Just so happened that Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And his dream was the real nations that actually laid siege to Tyre. That's what he's talking about when you break it down. So he gave it to us. So it was kind of sort of Nebuchadnezzar. But again, we know it wasn't no actual Nebuchadnezzar because he definitely, according to the date they give for his life and death, he wasn't even alive around that time. They could have distorted the date. Why didn't they? They could have changed it. These people control stuff. They didn't. They have to leave this stuff out here. There's rules, as I told you. This stuff is right here in front of our face, but people choose not to see it. Now, the important part about that prophecy in Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's prophecy, is the end. We know what it's talking about. Remember, what's supposed to happen? God is supposed to basically come and basically scatter all the nations and basically consume them, into one. That's supposed to be ruled by God. But who is God? They are. So when I try to tell people, it ain't no damn Bible prophecy coming true. It's men fulfilling what they wrote. And at the end, when all this stuff supposed to come to pass, and Jesus, everybody look for Jesus to come back or God to come down. Yeah, he was here the whole time. You ain't get the Bible? You ain't understand what we was talking about? Oh, that's your fault. It's us. It's we. Now we in control. We have everything. And when they do this, people, this is what I'm trying to tell people. This is why I try to prepare y'all for the next step. You know, fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, the afterlife, whatever you want to say. Because looking at this world and the way these people is, the way that people are just so consumed with greed and materialism and just so lost, they're going to win. They're going to win. And I really believe that. Some of you watching is not going to be stuck here when they do. You're going to make it. You spend time. You sit here, you made it to this point in the video, you've been watching. You are serious about what you're doing. Not everybody is. Everybody thinks it's a joke. They don't care. They're worried about the next party. They're worried about the next episode or something. They're not serious because they think all this stuff is bullshit. Unfortunately, I can't put all this, just put it out on YouTube. One, they'll take it down. Two, it's just going to get subject to scrutiny. This is work right here, people. This is work. This is knowledge. And it's tough. One, I got to go back into my old notes and research because I wrote all this stuff out years ago. I got to put this stuff together and try to put together a reasonable presentation for you guys to understand and give to you. You know, it's not easy as it looks. So I write notes, you know, so I can remember, so I can try to, you know, I don't have to be, have a really good memory. Because when something is so serious, it sticks with you. But also when you're excited about something, you get a little bit out of focus because you're so excited to speak about it. So sometimes, you know, I jump on my words or, you know, I'm not as clear as I should be because I'm sitting in front of a camera. There is no cameraman here. Maybe a couple times there was people here, you know, when I recorded a couple times, but rarely it's just me in front of the camera. This is my heart that I'm giving you. This is what I want you to understand. This is my life's work. And it took me a long time to accumulate this knowledge. And unfortunately, some people are not going to appreciate it. They're not going to get it. When you connect something so serious as the Bible to actual, you know, history in so many different ways, I mean, it's over. It's game. You can see what happened. Now, for me, it was a Eureka moment. It was, okay, I know. You know, this was one of the moments when it was like, game. When it was like, damn, I ain't got to be like, you know, thinking like, damn, am I tripping? Is it really a Jesus? You know, when you get all that knowledge, all that shit goes out the door. And you know definitively, 100% without a doubt, the man didn't exist. As I said before, it's possible there was a Jesus. I don't think his name was Jesus or somebody who they talking about who fit that description, but he wasn't the Son of God and all that extra shit and walk on water and all that bullshit. That stuff ain't true. It might have been some dude who had this knowledge and was walking around trying to preach it, and they crucified his ass, and they just made a story about it because it's the type of shit they do. But it wasn't no Lord and Savior died for your sins and all. It wasn't happening. And we'll get to this down the line. There are stories, but it's not about nobody named Jesus. It's about a couple people. But you do hear stories about, you know, remember I talked about how these people was Africans. About how some of these people had this knowledge and tried to teach it in secret to the Africans. And, you know, they was caught and crucified. This is what they was doing back then. When you got caught with that real knowledge, they crucified your ass. This is what they was doing. And it's probably what happened. But when you come into this knowledge and you get it and you understand what's going on, it changes everything. It changes your outlook on everything else. Hopefully it does. You still got to live life. You still got to go to work. You still got to do what you got to do, pay bills. You still got to survive. Do what you got to do. But don't deprive yourself of knowledge. Seriously, it's everything. It's everything. It's what's going to allow you to go and not be stuck here because these motherfuckers is going to win because people are stupid. They don't give a shit. They don't care about nothing but themselves. They lost. And they delight in them being lost. They love it. So unfortunately, because a lot of people are ignorant and don't care about other people, good people are going to have to suffer. Don't be one of those fucking people. Get this stuff. Get it on your own. Get it from me. Get it from somebody else. I don't care how you do it. Get it. Get it. Know it. Get it in you. Because it's everything. Meditation too. You know, this stuff going to come in. It's going to start changing your dreams, changing your outlook on a lot of stuff. Because you bring it in this knowledge. You need to get this stuff. Okay, so boom. Nebuchadnezzar is basically telling you exactly who really laid siege to Tyre. Same people that laid siege to Kemet. Same people, you know, Persians, Greeks, eventually the Romans. And it's telling you everything right there. And the crazy part is, it's saying that, the last prophecy about how everything is going to be destroyed or what have you. And it's funny how Islam is left out. This is why a lot of people say, because we know Islam came in. But, when they came out with this, he could have changed it in the King James Version and put it there so it pertains to Islam in some way. But this destruction that's supposed to happen, a lot of people will tell you that it's going to be because, of Islam. So something to look out for and just think about. But think about it. Once these people got control of this land, now they have control of Israel, they have control of Phoenician land, they can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. They can write stuff into existence, but we know it's bullshit. But this is how they can come up with the whole, Ptolemy II Philadelphia's and Septuagint and everything by saying, it came from these people. Everything is going back to the Greeks because then the Greeks can control the story. Goes to Israel because then they can control the story. But we know it's all bullshit. So one of the things is you have the language. You have the writing. Because when you find something that's Hebrew, they always say, oh, well, no, this is Paleo-Hebrew. Because they'll tell you that, Hebrew comes from Phoenician. So you have Phoenician, you have, Proto-Hebrew or Paleo-Hebrew, and you have, Hebrew. But they can use it because they know, well, we got control of the Phoenician land. When you look up the Greek language, guess what? They say, oh, we got it from the Phoenicians. We got it from the Phoenicians. So, when you read here, the history of the Greek alphabet starts with the adoption of Phoenician letter forms and continues to the present day. Enough said. But let's go to the Phoenician alphabet. It says down here, skip all that, the Phoenician alphabet is derived from Egyptian hieroglyphics. Plain and simple, because that's where it all came from. So when people tell you the Egyptians had the first writing, all this stuff came from there. These people didn't know squat. Plain and simple. They got taught. Comes from Kemet. So you have to think, as I said, this was a land where so many different people came into. So you can't learn all those languages, but you got to deal with these people. So the Egyptians developed this language, which, you can say is the Phoenician language. They developed the language for everybody to learn one language. If we all learn this one language, then this is what we can use to basically conduct business or what have you. This is what a lot of people believe the Phoenician language was, because we know this was Egyptian territory, but we know the language was kind of separate from the ancient Egyptian language, but we know these people was Egyptians. But you can see, they telling you clear as day, that's where it came from. Not where you can hide it. But when these people find these artifacts or what have you, they can say, oh, well, Proto, Proto or Phoenician or what have you. Notice they always say that for every artifact they find that supposed to pertain to the Hebrews or Israel. It's bullshit. They can't prove it. So they got to piggyback. This is just a drumming of history in this video. If you understand what I'm saying, you might have to watch this twice. But if you dig in this information, it kills everything. It just crushes the Bible, crushes the whole Hebrew bullshit, everything. Everything is right here. All this stuff can be researched and fact checked. You can go look at the books I put up and see what's going on. But this is it. This is it. This is a big smash right here. It's a big piece of the puzzle right here when you start to understand what exactly we're talking about in this video. So a lot of the artifacts they do find, one, because as I said before, if you're reading anything that's talking about these Hebrews or the Israelites existing before the 4th century BCE, you know it's bullshit. Because they didn't exist before the Greeks took that land, before they took Egypt, before they took Tyre, before they took Israel. Didn't exist. So we know that happened in the 4th century, 300s BCE. So before that, they didn't exist. There's nothing you can find. That's why we can't find no bodies. We can't find no artifacts. You don't start getting their history until after that, when you start actually finding stuff. So you got these Hebrews talking about 1000 AD and 200 AD. I know that's long ago. It doesn't fit still. It's still not before 4th century BC. Find me something before 4th century BCE, which they do have. but it's not proven 100% to be real because we know it's not real. They could put a date on all this stuff and give you these little shards and little pieces of stuff and say it's Hebrew or it's the Israelites. It's always a little shard. It's always a piece. They never can prove it. When you read the whole story, you have a bunch of other scholars and researchers that doubt the dates. It's all bogus. It's all bogus based upon proven history. So it's when you know history and you know this book, there's no debating it. We got them. So now, ain't it good to know the truth, people? It feels good to know. We got another piece. It's good to know the truth, to know what's going on, to know where some of the stuff starts to fit. So understand where it fits. And then again, when you start getting into this stuff again, you can see what is truth, what is fiction. Now you have a more broader understanding of what to look for. As I said again, you know, if they give you anything before the 4th century, it's bogus. You're just not going to find nothing. It's just not going to be real. It's not going to be real at all. So you understand they latch on to history. And you understand, one, when we're looking at all this stuff, it's all pertaining to the Greeks, the Romans. It's pertaining to these people, the whole Greco-Roman thing. Remember, you probably didn't see the clip if you don't follow me on Instagram, but we know that they followed us. And I showed you in the Tyre Museum, you know, that they have all the artifacts, they have all the proof to show exactly what they did. They put it in the Tyre Museum that they followed us. You know, take a quick look. Look at this wannabe pharaoh right here. It's hot. They got to keep it a certain temperature in here. But look at the face, clearly. This is the Greco-Roman era. You see how they try to decree themselves like us. Make stelas. See, it's all in Greek. Bullshit. All here. This is from the Greco-Roman era. Greco-Roman, when they came into Kemet and tried to basically, you know, be like us. Still our shit. You see they statues here, they're putting their own little section. They actually came into Kemet and carved themselves into a lot of the walls. Here is the actual statue of Cerebus Christos right here. You can see him. Cerebus. You can see when they had Zeus, Ammon. So you can see where the stuff came from. Zeus, Ammon. Everything that we tell you about this stuff, it's all here. It's no bullshit. It's here telling you the truth about how they stole from Kemet. So then there's a lot more history to all this. You look at the Etruscan Romans, supposed to be black people. We understand that even still, while this stuff was going on in Greece, and you know, remember Black Athena and everything like that, the whole ancient Greeks was black. That land was full of black people. And remember what I talked about in Buddhism, the rise of the Aryan power. Remember, the Aryans started coming down. They ain't just hit over in the Indus Valley in India, what have you. Yeah, they hit us in Europe as well, because we was there. And again, it's so much history that's covered up. So much that we're going to get into this stuff as much as we get. We're going to get into it as much as we can, as much as I can show you. But of course, you had these people in Europe, Italy as well, which you have so many things that's showing you ancient people in Italy were African people, were black people. Get into debates with people, and people want to just try to make up names and call people all kinds of different stuff. Black is black. They don't care if you black, you black. So if they focused on all of us in this same way, you got to understand there's something about us. And as I said before, the difference between us in America and people that's in Africa is exactly that. The people that got put on those slave ships had knowledge. They had knowledge. They wanted to get them out of Africa, away from the rest of the population, because these were the people who can actually develop the continent. You got to get them out of there. If you leave any of these people there who are kings and Moors, and you don't get them on your side, you got to off them or enslave them. Because if they talk to the rest of these people and start to understand that it's a plan in place that's going to put all these European, these white people against these Africans, then they smart. They're going to devise a plan and bring the whole continent together, and that's going to be game. Imagine that. So to stop all that, we were enslaved. And that's just the people that had the knowledge in Africa, not to mention the rest of the Africans that was already in Americas, that was already in those lands. So, and they was intelligent as well. Whole different story. So we know, again, you had Africans in Rome, you had so many different civilizations of African people around the world with this knowledge. And they came in and slowly got in and slowly took over. It's just no way around all that. It's exactly what everything is showing us. So a lot of people, just don't understand history. They don't want to look around and see what's going on. The Romans play a big part in the whole thing. And it's one of the things you got to look at it. And we'll get into this down the line because you got to understand, one, what is that difference? Why it seemed like at some point the Greeks and the Romans, who are, both white people, why were they separated? Why it made more sense for them to be together from the start? And we got to understand that may be a distortion in history, which we'll get into down the line. Because you got to remember, once the Romans took over, they continued Hellenization. Why is it that the Romans had all these same deities that pertain to the Greeks? Oh, it's I just talked about before with Zeus and Jupiter, with Jupiter supposed to be the Roman equivalent of Zeus. Why? Why we found all these Roman gods equivalent of Greek gods? What's up with that? So we're going to get into all that as we get into this series more and more. And, you guys can understand what's actually taking place. But, you start to see this stuff start to come over into Judaism, Christianity, and there still was a lot going on around this time when you understand how the stuff spread. So we got to remember, people, history is everything. If we don't learn history, we are not going to understand what's going on today. Now you got a big chunk of history and you can understand where this stuff started, how these people got in and began their dynasties, begin their rule, their control. This is where it started at. It started with Alexander. It started with them first taking the Greek land and the Roman land. Is very scarce history about all that. A lot of stuff was destroyed and covered up. So we don't have much history. We only have bits and pieces. But we know for sure, based upon artifacts and accounts, those lands was full of Africans. But you can begin to see what took place and how these people crept in and took control. And the thing about all this stuff is the Bible is decipherable. Just like how I was piecing it together to you now, you can sit down, piece this stuff together and prove the validity of the planet belonging to African people or African people being here before anybody else. It's easy to prove. You can break it down and show the world what these people did, just like how I just did. You can break it down and show this is where this stuff come from because there's no denying it. And they don't have any history to back it up, but we have the proof. We have the proof to prove who we are. We got the Egyptians, there's proof. Tyre, there's proof. They have the structure still there. The ruins still there. We have the proof. So this is why they distort the information. They don't want us to understand it because if we got a platform, just imagine if Obama was the real deal black dude and knew what I know. How he could just, not even Obama, he could just have it done. If TV series or the news media began to explain this stuff and break it down, that's the end of everything. This is why I tell people knowledge can change the world. We can change the world. Knowledge is the key. Because we know what happened. This is why none of these races, none of these white people can stand an argument with me. I kill them every time because I know history and I can break it down and give them the facts and proof to destroy their ideology. It's ideology. It's crazy. So when you know it, it's easy when you can just start going and say, oh no, this is what happened. And you have the proof to back it up and you can show people that's what it's about. That's what it's about. And this is what people need to understand. Real, true history, right history, and what's going on. But again, a lot of these people are, they're religious and they don't care. They don't want the truth. But that doesn't mean that the truth is not the truth and that it's invalid somehow because somebody won't accept it. It's still the truth. Rational people will listen. And you get enough rational people on board, that's all you need. That's all you need. Stuff can get done. So the stuff is hitting because they don't want us to understand true history, and how they stole our shit, basically, because it's right there in the Bible. Anybody with any kind of brain can figure this stuff out if you want to. They're talking about us, plain and simple in the book, but it's not the truth. And that's the problem. As I said, the Israelites are right on top of it. They close. They right in a lot of aspects, but they think the shit is real. That's their problem. Damn, y'all got it. Y'all right. They're fake Jews. You're right about that. The book's talking about us. You're right about that. But the stories is not true. I mean, I understand how some of these people can be so smart, yet so stupid. They be knowing the Bible, they seem so intelligent, but they be so off because they don't want to look outside the book. And the book dooms them. It dooms them. And they never going to get it. They're going to die. So many people have died believing in this book. It's crazy, but the truth is out there. You got to want it. You got to want to do the research. You got to want to read, and that's the problem. A lot of people don't want to read. They hate to read. You got to read. I don't care how boring it is. Get into it. Psych yourself up. It's something you have to do if you want to know this stuff. I get excited learning new stuff. I get excited, getting back into some of this information, going back through my notes, and there's a lot of stuff that we got to get into. But I want to thank you guys for supporting. I put out a lot of DVDs because it's a lot of information. I put out a lot of videos. A lot of people say, damn, you got a lot of DVDs out. 20, this will make about 24, I think, by my count. And then more to come because it's a lot of information. It's just stuff that, it's good to have this stuff on DVD or have it saved on your computer or what have you. Because I honestly believe YouTube is going to be gone eventually. This knowledge is going to be gone. It's good to have the downloads. It's good to have the DVDs and have archive of this stuff. I have all my videos backed up and hidden in all kinds of places, and just in case. But it's good information to have. And eventually, as I get time, I'm gonna put as much as I can in books, of course, as much as I can. All this stuff is gonna come out. Everything is gonna, be definitely out soon. And I appreciate everybody's support and patience, and people believing in what I'm trying to do. So, the support is real. It's just awesome. Everybody on Instagram, the messages I be getting, Facebook, everybody who email me, So people just cool. People from all over the world, people just cool. Don't speak English, Google Translate. Don't write English, I should say. They understand it. But they Google Translate me a lot of stuff. And I'll be like, what the hell are you trying to say? Because the Google Translate be off. But cool people out there, man. Y'all know who y'all is, the people who I really talk to. But yeah, appreciate the support. And a lot more to come. A lot more to come on YouTube. I've been trying to, bombard YouTube with a lot of stuff. A lot of people ask for the previews. Can you do more previews of the videos? A lot of people was asking for that. That's why I started putting them up there. Because, I guess people, they don't trust that, I got the shit, got skills. I know what I'm talking about. So they want to see, I guess, if the video is worth buying. So, put the previews up there so people would kind of see what we talk about. But, I appreciate everybody who sort of kind of keep the faith in what I put out. Not everything I put out, you might not understand at that moment is boom, spot on information. But when you go back and watch stuff, you'll understand what I'm saying, which is why I try to tell people to try to keep up with the videos, because a lot of this stuff is almost like continuations, and I kind of sort of go into old stuff a lot to prove my point. So if you have like all the videos or what have you, you understand this stuff is coming a lot more clearer. But I do this from time to time. But as I said, I'm actually late for dinner. I wanted to get this out because we're running around. It's the weekend. But thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Appreciate the support. See you guys next video.